All right, here's the last video I'm going to record for today. I actually kind of like recording these videos the day before and having the microphone. It's a little bit easier. I can try to get my thoughts out. They're not as spurky, so I can just try to say them a little bit more calmly, and I don't use the N-word as much because I know that kind of, I don't know. Sometimes that's my way of trying to sound tough. I'll be honest with you. That's what crackers my age do. Yo man, let's go ahead and start talking like we live in in New York in the 1980s and 1990s. Yo, come on, man. Yeah, word up, son. Yeah, word up, son. We're gonna go get us some Phillies, son. We're gonna put on our Timberland boots, and all that business. Yo, word, son. But yeah. Anyway, move on. Now I've heard this take from Captain Cool 07. I've also heard it now from good old Constantine's commentary. Now he's known as Constantine Martelli. Is that who it is? Constantine Martelli? Yeah, Constantine Martelli. Yep, I want to make sure. Yeah, Constantine Martelli. I'm going to go ahead and link that. I'm going to go ahead and link it, I think. I'll go ahead and be nice. I know some of y'all probably don't enjoy it. But I'm going to go ahead and link them. I'm going to go ahead and give them some props. Why not? But I listened to them, and they made the comparison. Is the U.S. in 2021 similar to, is it in the state of the Soviet Union was in the 1980s? And it's an interesting comparison. Like I say, I use that word interesting maybe too much. Maybe it's a phenomenon. Like I say, maybe I need to get the thesaurus and get some better words, but I think it's an apt point. I'll put it that way. In the sense that obviously they made the comparison saying that, life expectancy was going down in the 1980s in the Soviet Union, whereas life expectancy in the United States due to COVID, because of the now, what is it? It's got to be close to 1 million by this point. How many did? From COVID in the U.S., let's see here. Let's see here. Okay, sorry. I am cringe. So yeah, it's only 564,000 deaths. Okay. So it looks like we're what is it? The curve, flattening the curve. That's it. But I think that there's a good point to that. Obviously, once the war in Afghanistan ended in 1989, that was kind of the end of or the beginning of the end, or maybe it was just kind of the middle of the end of the Soviet Union. I'd say similarly, maybe with the United States. Now that we see what is occurring, we see the the huge police violence and everything else like that. It's just, as people have said before, the chicken's coming home to roost. Kind of relates back to the first video I had that I recorded today, which is about, U.S. state chauvinism, where my state is better than your state, this and that. But I think you can't really say that with the police. I think in general, doesn't matter which state you go to, police are getting rougher. It's just maybe some little differences here and there, but in general, police are more militarized than they have been. And even Wignats, I mean, I remember I saw this at this, but ACAB actually comes from white supremacists, apparently. And you can find that on the ADL. ACAB comes from white supremacists. So once again, even Wignats, as much as Wignats may praise the Gestapo or whatever to some degree, or I'm trying to think of the SD, the Sicherheitsdienst, the internal security for the Reich. I imagine that they'd say, well, it wasn't like the cops of nowadays, and I'm sure that that's how Wigness would justify it. But it's an interesting idea. And I think it's something that you could make the comparisons. But the thing is, though, is that kind of Russia proper was already kind of known. Whereas the U.S., eventually, I mean, are we going to break it apart by the Louisiana Purchase and by, I don't know. Like I say, it's a difficult decision. As much as people LARP about the tribes and everything else and decolonization, sorry. These tribes are not what people think they are. I mean, I made the comparison that some tribes make a lot of money from casinos or something, but a lot of tribes are irrelevant. They don't have any political power. So it would, you would have to have some powerful, paramilitary or military force of some sort, whether left wing or right wing or whichever. Well, left wing probably, not right wing, but that would have to enforce this decolonization of certain areas, which I don't see that really happening. I think decolonization is going to fall by the wayside, and simply conquering areas is going to be more pragmatic. So it's not going to be like, Lithuania breaks off or this and that, where they at least had some aspect of their culture. And I know, culture is a bad word. But, whereas with the United States, you have a place that's been fairly homogenized, at least culturally speaking. Yeah, there are certain aspects, like, people want to bring up food, like, Louisiana has your po' boys, and Texas has the beef, and all that stuff. But I think in general, it's a homogenized country to a point. I'm sure the people will say, well, what about this? What about, I know. So it will be very different. And it's been something I've thought about, is that when things break apart, will these differences continue to grow culturally? Or will there'll be a trend towards the United States coming back together? Because I've thought about that as well. Is it, will balkanization be temporary? That will happen for maybe 10 or 20 years, if that, and then a reunification under somebody else, under some fascist government or whatever the people talk about? Or would it be, or would we try to recreate it as it is? I don't see that the U.S., I've said this before, but I don't see that the U.S. could stay as it is or be rebuilt as it is, under this sort of federalist government where we give power to the states, but the federal government has power. I just, like I say, I don't see that, because the foundations of that would be attacked. And say, no, Jefferson was bad, George Washington was bad. All they would point to, I've seen, as I've said before, is that lefties point to Alexander Hamilton. Roughly. They go back and forth. But in general, they'll say the rest of them were all slave owners, this and that. So I say, okay, then where do we go from here? That's the real question, isn't it? So, like I say, I just haven't had those ideas fully fleshed out, so I didn't want to go there. But I'll go ahead and think about what goes on in my head. But I think that's kind of where I'm at. Would balkanization be temporary? Would it be permanent? Would states like Minneapolis or Minnesota, I don't know, oh boy, that again, but would these other states make ties with certain Canadian areas? Would Texas Would border towns be more aligned with Mexico? I don't know. It's something to think about, isn't it? It's something to think about for the future. But anyway, it's just more of a meditation than anything else. I hope y'all enjoyed that. See you later, and goodbye.